morning, children. Today's date is 26th of November and the year is 2020, and today's day is Thursday. Now, literacy class, we are going to be discussing parts of a story. So we have been doing this story named The Gingerbread Man. Yes, so you heard the story and then you drew a story map, yes, based on the story, and you also did picture sequencing based on that story. Yes, you arranged the pictures in the correct order, in the correct sequence. Yes, so today we are going to learn what are parts of a story. Yeah, let it be any story. They have three parts. Yes, a story majorly consists of three parts. Now, what are those three parts? The first is the beginning of the story, then is the middle of the story, and then we have the end of the story. Yes, so now if someone asks you what are the parts of a story, any story that you read can be divided into three parts. Yes, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. Yes. So now we are going to also study based on the story of the gingerbread man. Yes, now then we will discuss, after understanding what is the beginning, middle and end, we will then sort out from the story that what part is the beginning, what part was the middle of the story, and what part from the story of the gingerbread man was the end of the story. Okay, but before we discuss that, we have to understand what is the beginning, what is the middle, and what is the end of the story. Now let us see what all is included in the beginning of a story, in the middle of a story, and at the end of a story. Yeah, how the three parts are divided. So in the first part, that is the beginning of the story, yes, that is the first part of the story, the writer introduces the main character of the story. Yes, so the main characters of the story is introduced in this part, and also the setting is introduced. Yes, what's the setting? Setting is the place where the story is taking place. Yes, is the story taking place in a palace, or is the story taking place in a village? Yes, or is it taking place in a forest? So that's the setting, the place where the story is taking place. Yes, so these are the two main things that are introduced at the beginning of the story. Yes, the main character is introduced, and the setting, the place is introduced where the story is happening. Yes, and this is a very important part of the story. Right? Because if the beginning of the story is good, yes, that then only will you want to read the story further. Yes, so this part has to be made interesting. This is a very interesting part of the story. Then coming to the next one. Yes, so first part of the story is the beginning of the story. The second one is the middle part of the story. Yes, now it is here where the bulk of the story rests. Yes, the major part of the story is shared here. Some very major details of the story is shared in this part. Yes, and in this part, all the other characters of the story are also introduced. So the main character is introduced in the beginning, and all the other characters, yeah, the small characters of the story are introduced in the middle part of the story. Yes, and in most of the stories, the problem that happens in the story is discussed in this part. Yes, so what has the problem that has occurred in the story? What is the problem that happens? Yeah, the main part of the story is discussed in the middle part of the story. Yeah? So this is like the major chunk of the story is in the middle part. So if you just hear the beginning and the end of the story, you will not understand anything. So this is like the main part of the story. Yeah, the main part of the story where the problem is discussed. Happens in the middle part of the story. Yeah, and then comes the end of the story. There's the beginning of the story, then we have the middle part, a very important part of the story, yeah, where the major part of the story is discussed, and then we have the end of the story. Now this is the part where the story comes to a close. Yeah, so what happens in the closure of the story? The problem that has been discussed in the middle part gets solved. Yeah? So how the problem is solved is discussed at the end of the story. Yeah? This part of the story shares the conclusion. That's the ending part, the closure of the story. Yeah? And it also, in most of the times when the problem is discussed, the end part shares the solution to the problem. Yes? And this is also a very interesting part of the story, because this is where, it either has a happy ending or a sad ending. Yeah? And if the ending of the story is happy, we all feel so satisfied and happy ourselves after reading the story. And if the ending of the story is sad, we also feel sad, isn't it? Yes, so this is also a very important part of the story, the ending. We all love to listen to stories which have happy ending, isn't it? Yes. So these are the three main parts of a story: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Remember these three parts of a story with the help of a sandwich. Yes, you all eat sandwich. Yes, so what happens in a sandwich? So you have two pieces of bread, two slices of bread, and then you have some filling in between. Yeah, some veggies or some mayonnaise and butter. Yes, that is where do you put it? At the top of the sandwich or in the middle of the sandwich? In the middle. Yes. So what happens is, this is the first slice, the top slice, and that's called the beginning of the story. And the bottom slice is the end of the story. Yes. And the middle part, all the filling that you put in your sandwich is the middle part. That's the middle of the story. That is a very important part, isn't it? If I just give you two slices of bread, is it a sandwich? No, it's not a sandwich. You need some filling inside, isn't it? Yeah? That is why the middle part of the story is one of the most important part of the story. Yeah? Almost the entire story rests in that part. Yes, so this is easy to remember with the help of a sandwich. The top slice is the beginning of the story. The middle, or the filling part, is the middle part of the story. And the bottom part, the bottom slice is the end of the story. So the three parts of a story are the beginning, the middle, and the end.